I don't need a wife who's away for days, leaving chores and cleaning undone. We're getting a divorce.
Sean sent me a letter out of the blue just as I returned from a business trip overseas.
If he was gonna go there, fine, let's really go through with this divorce. It felt like a tit for tat, but maybe it was more like a blessing in disguise. And Sean, oh Sean, you really missed out on a great catch.
My name's Mindy. I'm 36, and recently, all these young actors seem to blend into one face to me. Not to mention, I can't tell one idol from another. I used to be on top of all the trends, yet now, I find supermarket discount stickers more interesting than idols. Maybe it's a sign of getting older. About 3 years ago, I was on cloud 9, having just gotten engaged to my boyfriend Sean, who was originally my boss. He was good at looking at the big picture at work and was very reliable. He always took the lead during our relationship, and I was sure he would make a dependable husband. I was really looking forward to our future together. Such girly thoughts I had. But when it came to personal life, my judgment was admittedly naive. The first sign came during a visit for marriage introductions. Initially, I wasn't uncomfortable or anything. I was impressed by his seemingly kind parents. Ted, his father, would constantly ask his wife Barbara,
"Another cup of coffee, please. Barbara, could you check the mailbox? Throw this away for me, sweetheart."
Surprisingly, she just did whatever her husband asked, without complaint. He wouldn't even bother to use a trash can right beside him, asking her to throw away trash even when she was far away. Seriously, just do it yourself, I thought in my head. But coming from a single-parent home, the dynamics of a household with a father were somewhat foreign to me. Is this how it's supposed to be? Sean's silence on the matter was slightly troubling, but I figured each family has its quirks, and if she didn't mind, it wasn't my place to comment. Fortunately, Sean lived alone and managed his own affairs, which I observed firsthand. I optimistically thought he was nothing like his father. People only see what they want to see. Who was it that said that?
"Mindy, the remote."
You can get it yourself, it's right there.
Oh, come on.
Once we got married, these exchanges became more frequent. He'd hand me a glass and say, "Please," or ask me to prepare his clothes after a bath. At least these requests were understandable. But then there were times he'd say,
"Get that ready, please,"
and expect me to know what that was. And if I got it wrong, he'd complain,
"This isn't it. Try to understand what I want."
Sean never cleaned up after himself, leaving things everywhere. The toilet was a mess too. He'd lift the seat, but then leave splashes on the floor, essentially leaving it as is. Despite my efforts to keep the house clean, it would be a mess again within hours, which was demotivating. You'd think he could at least notice the mess and clean up a bit. When I mentioned this, he said,
"I didn't realize it was dirty. If you noticed it, you should clean it up."
That was a bit much for me, so about 3 months into our marriage, I suggested we split the household chores. However, he looked puzzled and asked,
"Why?"
That is exactly my question for you. Why don't you even understand that? When I explained that sharing chores is normal for couples living together, especially since we both worked, he countered,
"But you work from home, and I have to go to the office. How can I do household chores?"
But working from home doesn't mean I'm free all day, you know. I still make time for chores, and so can you. His response was dismissive.
"So you're just better at it. You should do it all."
His tone was off-putting, almost as if he was distancing himself.
Sean then justified, "It's only natural for a wife to take care of the house. My mom even washed my dad's hair."
To which I replied, "Really? That's just weird." He brushed it off as normal, then criticized my cooking.
"You're just lazy with the meals."
Excuse me? What do you mean lazy?
You use stock cubes in the cooking. I saw it.
How can you notice that, but not see the mess you make? If you didn't make such a mess, I'd have more time for cooking.
Don't blame me. That's why you couldn't stick with the job at our company.
I reminded him. We agreed I'd leave the company. That's why I started my own business. And don't change the subject. What started as a simple conversation about sharing chores spiraled into a huge argument. Was it fair to criticize my upbringing and character? How awful for him to say it's because I was raised by a single mother. I wanted to complain about his patriarchal expectations. Regret started to creep in about our marriage. After such a fight, I hoped he'd reconsider his habits, but the toilet was as dirty as ever the next morning. It seemed almost intentional. I hate starting my day with cleaning the toilet. Following our fight, Sean accused.
I never thought you'd become such a demanding wife after marriage.
It seemed he had expected me to cater to him as his mother did for his father. So he saw my independence as selfishness. Who is he to tell me all this when he doesn't even lift a finger around the house? Despite our fight, reaching an understanding with him felt impossible. As a newlywed, was I really supposed to endure this? Is marriage something you need to work so hard on by cultivating perseverance? I'm clueless when it comes to stuff like this as I have just gotten married. I work from home as an international stationery buyer, a skill I honed at the same company Sean still works for. After leaving, I started my own business, changing the product line out of respect. Amidst my relationship turmoil, my overseas buyer fell ill, hinting I might need to travel abroad to sustain our operations. Sean's immediate reaction to my impending trip was,
I wasn't aware of any business trip.
Well, I'm telling you now. When I mentioned it was a recent development, his disdain for me traveling was palpable. He asked,
Who will take care of the house while you're gone?
Well, since you're the only one here, obviously you.
So you're prioritizing work over our home? What matters more to you, work or home?
Look, I manage both just fine. It's just a week away.
The money you bring in is so small anyway. You should focus more on supporting me, the main breadwinner.
I'm contributing to our living expenses from what I earn too, so it's not like it's a small amount.
I don't care anymore. I'm not approving your business trip. You need to cool off. I won't speak to you until you realize your mistake and come to apologize.
He declared, slamming the living room door shut and stomping up to our bedroom on the second floor. True to his words, he started ignoring me from the next day, but I was far from ready to back down. I didn't think for a moment that my words or thoughts were wrong. Apologizing now just to make up would only reinforce his belief that I should naturally do all the housework. I ended up going on my business trip without having the chance to mend things. A week later, I returned from my trip feeling calm. My collaborators seemed to be recovering faster than expected, and it looked like I'd be able to keep the business going. Meeting with the new manufacturers directly was truly worth the trip. I landed back home filled with more motivation than ever, thinking maybe it was time for an honest conversation with my husband. But if he still didn't understand, then that's that. Imagine my shock when I returned home to find all his belongings gone. The kitchen had cups left out, and his pajamas from the morning I left for my trip were tossed in the laundry basket. There was no doubt about it. He had left the house the day I went on my trip. What? Is this some kind of spite? I muttered irritably as I tried calling his cell, but he didn't pick up. I even called his parents' house, but they insisted he wasn't there. It seemed he was going to work, but they wouldn't put me through, probably because he didn't want to talk. Fine, be that way, I thought for a few days on my own, until one day an envelope from the post office arrived. It was from him. Ignoring my calls but sending a letter? What's he thinking? Inside, a divorce paper signed by him appeared.
Along with it was a letter. I don't need a wife who's away for days, leaving chores and cleaning undone. We're getting a divorce. Apologize now if you're going to. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. Laughing so hard alone in the house was embarrassingly hilarious. Despite all the running around and not picking up calls, the return address was his parents' house, making it obvious where he was. What's he really trying to do? Does he think I'd go begging to his parents' house? Especially saying, apologize now if you're going to, he must be thinking I wouldn't file for divorce. But he should have at least sent an unsigned divorce paper if he was going to do this. Really, he's such an idiot. He used to be a boss I admired, but now he's nothing like he used to be. His ridiculously stupid actions helped me clear my head of any doubts. So, shall I just submit this divorce paper to the city office as you wished? With that, I decided to proceed with the divorce. It was a whirlwind divorce, really. I asked my mom and a former coworker for their signatures as witnesses, and they were shocked. Aren't you going to regret this? They worried. But when I laughed off their concerns and explained everything, they both smiled relievedly and agreed, divorce is the right choice. The divorce paper was successfully filed, and 2 weeks later, shockingly on a Sunday morning, the doorbell rang insistently. Wondering what was happening, I peeked out the window to see my mother-in-law, or rather my former mother-in-law, standing there. Can't really ignore this, I thought, and reluctantly opened the door, only to find, not visible from the window, Sean standing beside her. Mindy, please do something about this boy, she pleaded. I was dumbfounded by her request. When I asked what was going on, she said, ever since he came back to our house after fighting with you, he literally does nothing. Not just doing nothing, he's really getting in the way. She complained. Hey, you've been taking care of Dad, so it's only fair you do a bit for your son too, Sean argued. You're much worse than your father. How have you survived until now? His mother retorted, overwhelming him with her anger. I had to suppress my laughter as I listened to their exchange. Before you two got married and he was still living at home, he never tried to make me do all these things. Clearly, he must have been relying on you a lot. He's so spoiled. She sighed heavily, looking annoyed at Sean, who awkwardly glanced at her and looked away. But he called me a wife who can't do any housework or cleaning, I said, laughing. That's terrible. Her face froze. Seeing him back at our house made it clear how much you've struggled. The bathroom is a mess. He leaves hair in the bathtub and doesn't care about making a mess. He's completely lost the sense of doing things himself. You were such a great wife for dealing with such a big baby. Please make up quickly and take him back. She begged desperately. I burst into laughter at her serious plea to take him back. Imagine, it's her own son and she's asking me to take him back. Well, I suppose if the husband supports the family financially, a bit of patriarchal attitude could be tolerated, but even a mother has her limits with a son acting that way. I've realized it's impossible for me, regardless of financial contributions. Look, Sean, apologize to Mindy. You must have acted like a big baby, making her angry, she said, grabbing his arm. He seemed reluctant, but apologized, sorry. Did you finally realize how much I've taken care of you? I asked. Seeing how much Mom disliked it, I've kinda got it, he admitted. Kind of, huh? I prodded. No, I mean, I really understand. I feel bad. It won't happen again. I shouted, that's what I wanted to hear, in my heart, and I almost smiled, but I kept it in. It was tough being criticized as a wife who couldn't do the housework or cleaning when I had tried so hard. Keep the patriarchal attitude in check.
or even a 100-year romance can turn sour, I warned. Sorry. He genuinely apologized this time, seeming to have truly realized his mistake. His mother added, Your father grew up in the countryside with old-fashioned values, so I tolerate his patriarchal ways, but that can only be forgiven when there's real trust between a couple. Did you really listen to Mindy's feelings? She pressed him. I tried to communicate, but everything was denied, I said with a laugh. Oh, son, what have you done? She scolded him. Facing the criticism from two women, Sean looked like a chastened little boy. I'm sorry for such a son, Mindy, she apologized. Oh, no, it's fine. I'm not bothered anymore. I reassured her, and then Sean, holding my hand, pleaded, I'll change. Let's start over. It's too late now. I cut him off. What? He was stunned. What do you mean? I've already filed for divorce. You did what? I received the acceptance notice at the end of last week. Your part came to our house because you haven't changed your mailing address yet. What? You filed? Where? He stammered. Where else but the city hall? Calm down, I said. I am calm. I am. What? He exclaimed, clearly not calm and starting to panic. It seemed he hadn't expected me to actually file for divorce. You're just okay with divorcing so easily, even though we're newlyweds? He questioned. Yep, I am. After all, you negated everything about me, right down to my upbringing and personality, and then slapped the label of an incapable wife on me. Of course I consider divorce, I retorted. Sean, did you really do that? My former mother-in-law asked again in anger, and he went pale, admitting, Now that you mention it. Sighing deeply as she shook her head, she said, What are you gonna do? Sorry, but I can't keep you at our house any longer. I brought you here today so you can make up with Mindy. His face fell, and looking between me and his mother, he said, I have nowhere to go. However, both his mother and I shook our heads, showing we had no intention of taking him in. He slumped down, cradling his head. I was worried about being kicked out without having changed the house's ownership, but fortunately, it seemed he wasn't thinking that far ahead. I'm going home, his mother said, leaving him behind as she took a taxi. Well, I said, and quietly closed the front door. After a while, I could hear him sobbing, but I didn't open the door. Later on, he lived in a hotel before starting to live on his own again. He still claims to love me and has changed, asking for reconciliation numerous times, but I've been ignoring him. The house has been sold, so there's no reason for him to approach me anymore. Apparently, he's now banned from entering his parents' house. His presence has become a sort of trauma for his mother, worried he'll start mooching off them again, so it's not disownment, but a ban from visiting. Essentially, it's like being disowned though, since there's hardly any visiting. Thus, his patriarchal attitude caused him to lose 2 homes. The shock of the divorce has affected his job performance, and he's been surpassed by his juniors, leading to his current depressive state. He's too old to consider switching jobs and wants to consult me about it, but that's no longer my concern. As for me, my business is thriving more than ever. People ask if I plan to remarry, but for now, my work is my love. However, I've been getting dinner invitations from a man I do business with lately. Maybe my own romance is just around the corner. Who knows?
When I asked for a divorce, my husband said, "Here's the form. Can't even submit it, huh?" I swiftly prepared for divorce, leaving my husband in tears.
I'm Lisa, and I'm 25 years old. My husband and I got married 2 years ago, and we live in a small apartment that's over 40 years old. The room I have lived in since I was single is old and small, but it will stay that way for a while. We are talking about a larger house when we have children.
I'm home! Lisa! I bought some souvenirs.
Cake? Looks delicious. But what's this for? It's not our anniversary or anything, right?
Even if it's not our anniversary, I just wanted to make you happy. Aren't you in the mood?
No, I'm happy. Thank you.
Then let's eat. I will make some tea for you.
My husband is good at quietly helping out with little surprises. We thought everything was going smoothly. One day, something like this happened. Hey, isn't this some kind of mistake?
What's wrong? Oh no!
The document my husband hastily took from my hand was a cash advance bill. What does this mean, cash advance?
Well, oh dear, you look scary, Lisa. I prefer it when you're smiling and cute.
But this isn't a loan. And borrowing $10,000 for furniture is too much.
Well, let me explain properly. You see, didn't I have consecutive events like my colleague's wedding? I got busy and missed going to the bank, so I had no choice but to. Oh, and of course, I will pay you right back, no problem.
Really?
It's true, I'm sorry. I know you were worried. I will be more careful from now on. I won't do it again.
Our household finances are managed by my husband. Every month, we pull a fixed amount and invest it. But my husband, who is good at accounting, oversees our savings as well. Certainly, there have been times before when my husband mentioned being busy with various family events. Yeah, but I don't like us being in debt. Can you promise to tell me next time? If I have cash on hand, I can cover it in advance, and I can also go to the bank instead.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't think of that in all the rush.
My husband was clearly relieved. I had a feeling something was off. But since this was the first time, and above all, because I trusted my husband, I didn't delve deeper. Also, I had a more serious and pressing issue on my mind. My husband gets along very well with his parents. They are in frequent contact, and he always visits them without fail on weekends.
My mom has weak bronchial tubes. I had asthma-like symptoms when I was little, so I understand the difficulty and want to help.
My husband is an only child, and it seems like his father travels a lot, often leaving the house empty. I think it's one of my husband's good qualities to be filial. However, I'm not particularly, well, I really don't get along with my mother-in-law. The thing is, every time we visit my in-laws, I'm asked, I wonder if we'll hear good news today. Every time we go to my in-laws, they say this. I want to see my grandchild's face soon. I've been hearing this over and over for the past 2 years, and I'm tired of it. At first, I laughed it off, but eventually, it became so persistent that it started to annoy me, and recently, I decided to just consider it a cliché. I've tried to convince myself that it's not that I don't want children, and I understand my mother-in-law's expectations to some extent. I have siblings, and I have seen how ecstatic my parents were when nieces and nephews were born, and I've rejoiced in seeing their growth too. Still, being constantly pressured like this every time we meet just complicates things. Having a child is a blessing, and it shouldn't be something you do just because your in-laws want it. To be honest, I just want them to leave it alone. But even so, I hate the idea of being clear about it, so I always vaguely evade the subject. Yet, I increasingly dread going to my in-laws on weekends, feeling like I'm walking into a minefield. Can you go by yourself this weekend? When I blurted this out to my husband, he looked really surprised.
Did something happen with Mom? An argument? I will call her right now to scold her. What's going on?
Feeling pressured, I quickly denied it.
Phew, that's a relief. I was worried you had a falling out or something. Mom always looks forward to us coming over every week, so I wonder what's wrong. Thank you for always getting along with her so well.
Yeah. It frustrates me how easily I'm persuaded. It's frustrating, but compared to the mother-in-law issues I hear about elsewhere, it's not a big deal, so I won't back down here. But if I become stubborn, somehow I feel like the bad guy, and I don't want to strain my relationship with my husband. I totally messed up the boundaries. I complained to my girlfriend. She's a friend I used to go to gathering with, where I met my husband. They know each other. They say the first impression is crucial, right? Doing it once a week for so long, that's impressive. But I can't just leave my frail mother-in-law alone. Huh? Frail? Are you kidding me? Wasn't she an athlete in high school? Oh? Is there some mistake? No, I remember it well. She had a scholarship. We were having so much fun at the after party that day. We were talking about whether athletic ability is hereditary. Your husband was in the group that didn't inherit it. This friend has an amazing memory. However, I couldn't easily believe it and insisted it might be a mistake. But she remembered many other things in detail. Some doubts about my husband began to arise within me. And it was the following week. That day, my father-in-law happened to be there, and we ended up talking about children again. Isn't it about time you quit your job? Taking care of the house is also an important job for a woman.
Our son is earning enough, so being a homemaker should be fine, right? That way, you can have children soon.
Huh? If I were to quit my job?
Both of you, don't say such things. Lisa likes her current job. We promised not to tell her to quit when we got married, so don't interfere.
My husband intervened, cutting me off before I could speak. And besides, it seems my in-laws have some misunderstanding. But if I were to quit my job, we wouldn't be able to make ends meet on just my husband's income.
What about the children if you say things like that? We were looking forward to our grandchildren. Are you perhaps defending Lisa?
Huh? As I tilted my head in confusion, my father-in-law stared at me intently.
I'd like to ask at this point, are you perhaps infertile? Are you using your job as an excuse to hide that from us?
No, that can't be true, can it? You mean you can't have children? Not that you want? My mother-in-law raised her voice. Is my son covering for you because of that? This was something I usually endured, but I couldn't help but raise my voice in response. There's no way that's true. Fine, I will go to the gynecologist. I will let you know the result, and if it turns out that I'm the cause, I will undergo treatment. I can't bear such baseless accusations. Fueled by the frustration I've been holding in, I involuntarily raised my voice. Even though I surprised myself, I realized how much stress I had been under, which made me unable to stop. I will make an appointment with the hospital right now. My hand holding the phone trembled with anger. Then, my husband took the phone from me and said,
"There's no need for infertility test. I'm not going to force us to have children just because others want it. The same goes for work. I value our time as a couple, and it's our issue."
I was surprised by his unexpectedly strong tone and attitude, which I hadn't seen from him before. It seems my in-laws were feeling the same way. Both of them fell silent. The following week, after enduring an awkward time, I quietly took a day off and visited the obstetrician gynecologist. My husband's vehement anger seems to have put a damper on my in-laws' meddling for a while. But in case it turned out I really was infertile, I felt anxious and decided to clarify things. I considered inviting my husband along, but given the recent events, it was a sensitive topic, so I decided to keep it to myself until I confirmed my own situation first. I went to hear the result alone. I was extremely nervous and worried, but the results showed no issues. Almost unconsciously, I felt like humming a tune, and as I looked around again, I noticed a pregnant woman with a big belly patiently waiting her turn in the waiting room. Seeing her made me think, not right now of course, but someday, maybe I too. And I felt that sentiment within me.
"Hey Lisa, you seem to be in a good mood. Plus, this huge feast. Was it an anniversary or something?"
Well, sort of. It's not an anniversary, but there is cake for dessert.
"Nice."
As the two of us chatted away and enjoyed dessert and tea, we were immersed in happiness.
"Lisa, how much do you have saved up right now?"
Huh? How much? What?
"Well, you receive a fixed amount of money every month, but each of us manages our own income, right? I was just curious about how you handle your personal spending money and savings."
Oh, it's fine. I'm not really struggling. My saves aren't huge, but I've been steadily saving up.
"How much?"
My husband seemed somewhat hesitant to ask, and I tilted my head in confusion.
"Could you manage to rearrange things a bit if possible? Things have been tight around here lately."
Tight? We weren't planning on any big purchases, were we? Oh, but if it's just temporarily, we can use some money from both of our savings. Come to think of it, how much did we have in savings again? Can you show me the bank book?
"That's not it. I'm talking about using your savings, Lisa."
Huh? I was surprised by my husband's sudden irritation. At that moment, my husband produced a familiar form. A cash advance bill?
"It's a hassle when it gets overdue. It has to be paid by the due date."
What's this? Why is the amount so... What did you use it for?
"That doesn't matter. Just quickly notify the store."
It does matter. And about the bank book. Actually, about our savings.
"I told you, there's none. If you want to see for yourself, go ahead."
The bank book he tossed over showed a balance of only 2 digits. Huh? But we save money every month. Even though we were in an old apartment now, eventually, when we have children, we'll need a bigger place. Despite my shock, my husband began rummaging through my bag. And then,
"Huh? What's this? Infertility test?"
with a look of disbelief, my husband slid the document aside. I just wanted to make sure, in case I'm infertile. Actually, I was planning to invite you to come with me.
"Who said anything about getting treatment? Don't mess with me."
With an enraged tone, My husband started emptying the contents of my bag. Seeing my husband's sudden change in demeanor, I quickly grabbed the pouch that flew open and handed him the bank book for our savings.
Why do you carry it around? If you had kept it in a drawer or something, we wouldn't be having this trouble.
I'm sorry. 1 month later.
Lisa, you seem down lately. What's wrong?
The routine visit to my in-laws' house every weekend continued as usual. It seems we are temporarily averted the crisis with our bank book. And later, my husband apologized in a soothing tone. I nodded silently, but our relationship remained strained. My husband pretended that everything was normal on the surface, but it seems that I couldn't hide my feelings on my face. But your complexion looks off. Have you lost some weight? Oh, could it be? My mother-in-law snapped her fingers. Could it be that you're pregnant? Are you feeling unwell due to morning sickness?
I see. Despite everything, we finally have a grandchild.
My father-in-law's face also lit up. Please, stop it already. I raised my voice again. After the events of a month ago, things remained calm for a while. But then, anger began to simmer. Seeking advice from my female friend fueled doubts that I had secretly wished to dispel. Since then, I had been preparing for this moment. I will settle it once and for all. There won't be a day when you can hold a grandchild. I laughed at my in-laws.
Lisa?
My husband stood up abruptly. Oh, you want to fess up yourself?
What? Lisa?
My in-laws were bewildered. I spread out my test result. I can prove that there is nothing wrong with me. But what about you? Ugh! I added another document and a voice recorder. My husband started trembling. If you listen, you will understand. But you've been spreading rumors elsewhere that I'm infertile. But it's strange, isn't it? The results of the premarital check we did before on a whim with our drinking buddies are different, right? My friend got hold of the result and the photos we took at the drinking session. As I slowly flipped through the pages, there was a photo of my husband. His face flashed, pointing to a section of the document. On the next page, there was an enlarged version of that area.
Huh? No way!
It seemed even my in-laws, who were peering in, understood. A defective product incapable of having children. I will throw those exact words right back at you.
Shut up!
My husband glared at me with red eyes.
You're always just working, neglecting your wifey duties. Consider yourself lucky just to have been taken as a wife.
As my husband uttered those spiteful words, I felt my emotions grow cold to the core. Who is it that can't get by without that income?
What?
I think it's best to leave it there. Didn't I tell you to investigate? As expected, Hugh avoided eye contact when I reminded him of this. And there, farther ahead, was the figure of my father-in-law. Oh, it's a secret between men, isn't it? I flipped through another document. What? You! My in-laws were looking at me with different emotions. When I saw the investigation result, I too felt utterly helpless. So, when your dad said he was going on business trips, it turns out he was actually going to horse racing tracks or boat races. When he lost money there, he'd borrow from you, who, unable to admit you had no earnings, would pretend and resort to cash advances. Father and son are both gambling, so there must have been a tacit understanding between you two. The day you suddenly bought a cake, it was probably because you had income from gambling. Did you feel guilty about using the money that we were supposed to be saving together?
Shut up.
That's right. Meddling despite being a daughter-in-law. The one who erupted with feeble objections was my mother-in-law. You have been deceiving me all along. Lying is despicable.
You're the worst too, Mom.
What? Pretending to be weak on weekends to make me do the housework, but then going out energetically during weekdays. My mother-in-law looked as if she had been doused with cold water, not expecting to see her own photo. Nothing but secrets and lies. Like father, like son, huh? And I've been fooled. I don't know what I thought was so good about this guy, but I'm ashamed of myself. The heavy sigh wasn't an act. It was genuine. Please, let's get a divorce. When I thrust the already filled out divorce papers at him, my husband snapped.
That's my line. I will find a better wife than you.
After a heated exchange, my husband roughly filled out the divorce papers and stormed off. With my in-laws too busy with their own disputes, they showed no intention of intervening.
Here's the divorce papers. Take them.
Don't hold back. As I meticulously checked for any mistakes, it seemed like he thought I was waiting for him to stop.
Even though you won't submit them, don't push your luck.
Suddenly, speaking down on me.
You've got no savings left, and you're hopeless. Apologize. And from now on, work as hard as you can. I might forgive you now.
I shivered as my husband gave a faint smile, suggesting there were no other options. Don't worry. I have divided the bank books to manage them separately. What I gave you was the smallest amount. And actually, I've been promoted. I can manage well enough on my own.
Huh?
Well then, goodbye.
Wait!
I quickly turned on my heel. He was yelling something behind me, but I didn't care to listen. A few days later, as a precaution, I sought refuge at our friend's house. After confirming my husband's absence, I vacated our home. That night, I received several incoming calls.
What's going on? Why can't I get into the room?
The furious voice, loud enough to be heard without a speaker, belonged to my ex-husband. We have already submitted divorce papers, so we're not a couple anymore. Of course, it's only natural since we've canceled the contract and changed the locks.
What? You're doing whatever you want.
Well, that's because I've been renting this room since I was single. I sent your belongings COD to your parents' house.
Huh? You?
I don't want to be called you by someone who are not even my husband. I abruptly ended the call. Of course, I also remembered to set up call blocking. Good job! Thank you. The new room is part of the company's employee dormitory. I celebrated with a friend who came to help me move and to take precautions, just in case.
Let's go submit the marriage registration form again. You should need me, damn it!
It was a few moments later when my husband's voice echoed in the company's lobby. He, my ex-husband, barged in as I was about to have lunch during my break.
Where do you live now? I will move there too. If you got promoted, your salary must have increased, right? It's been tough.
Looking at him in his shabby suit, I felt sorry for him. Men are prohibited.
Huh?
And if it's tough, why don't you work hard somewhere else instead of coming here?
You, acting all innocent, are just leeching off me for money.
My husband, who was ranting and raving, was taken away by a security guard and taken in by the police. I said sorry for causing trouble, and my colleagues and supervisors comforted me. They threw a dinner party to celebrate my promotion and divorce anniversary. Since then, it's been 3 years already, and I met someone through a friend, and now I'm pregnant. I'm about to go on maternity leave soon. I heard that my ex-husband had to quit his job due to his bad behavior, like getting into trouble with the law and gambling debts. The house, where my in-laws reluctantly reside together, has also fallen apart, leaving behind a scene resembling a garbage dump. My mother-in-law, being herself, apparently engaged in infidelity during my father-in-law's absence and ended up moving in there or something like that. Furthermore, it seems my father-in-law is claiming compensation for the infidelity from my mother-in-law. But to me, it's all the same. Well, they're both strangers to me, so I don't really care. I will keep my head up and do my best to preserve my current happiness.
My husband and his mother, standing outside my ill sister's hospital room, discussed using her life insurance to buy a new home. I ended up exposing them.
I'm Morgan, and I'm 25 years old. I'm just your typical housewife. Today, like any other day, I'm doing household chores and waiting for my husband to come home. While my relationship with my in-laws is quite tough, my relationship with my own family is generally very close-knit. I'm particularly close with my sister Hillary, who is 3 years younger. When we were little, we always played together, and that never changed as we grew up. Even as adults, we still hang out with each other, going back and forth to each other's houses. One day, my sister called me. "Hillary, what's wrong?" Even though she always sounds cheerful on the phone, I sensed something was off. It felt like she was dealing with some problem. "Well, I've been feeling a little sick and had to go into the hospital for a checkup." "Huh? Are you okay?" I was really shocked. I always thought Hillary was so healthy, never catching even a cold. What if it's a serious illness? I was feeling my heart pounding. "It's okay. It's just an examination, so don't worry too much." "Okay, got it. Take care of yourself." I hung up the phone, and on the day the test results came out. I went to the hospital accompanying my sister. My sister said I was overreacting, but as her sister, I couldn't just leave it. It was impossible to wait quietly at home. As I entered the examination room, the attending physician was looking at the x-ray with a serious expression. I have a bad feeling about this.
Please calm down and listen.
I swallowed hard. My sister was also nervous, looking at the doctor's face.
Let me tell you the conclusion. Hillary has a malignant tumor.
That's... I muttered quietly. She seemed calm, but it was clear she was in shock. She's only 22, and I can't believe she has cancer.
Tumors were observed in this part of the stomach. We'll perform surgery to remove them, followed by chemotherapy.
The doctor pointed to what seemed to be the main part of the x-ray with a pen as he said so. "She'll be okay, right? She'll survive, won't she?" I pressed urgently, but the doctor looked troubled.
It's a delicate situation. Anyway, without trying, we won't know anything.
"Hillary, are you okay?" Yeah, I'm fine. You're worrying too much. You look really scared, you know." My sister is cheerfully patting my shoulder, but as her older sister, I can tell she's really frightened. She seemed to be trembling slightly. And so my sister proceeded to go through the formalities for hospitalization. When we contacted our parents and relatives, everyone exclaimed in surprise, their voices full of shock. Relatives from both my and my husband's families came to visit right away.
Hillary, are you okay? I was really surprised.
"I'm fine, don't worry so much." While my parents and uncle genuinely showed concern, my husband and mother-in-law seemed somewhat annoyed to have come for a visit. "Why do I have to come to a place like this? I hate hospitals. They have such a gloomy atmosphere."
Don't say that. She's my sister-in-law, and she's sick. It can't be helped, right?
I overheard such whispers. I pretended not to hear anything and turned to face my sister.
Anyway, just try to stay calm, okay? It's important not to move around too much, okay? I'm still feeling fine, so don't worry about me like that. I was so worried about my sister I couldn't help it. She has a somewhat bad habit of putting on a smile, especially when things get tough. Because I've known her since we were little, I can read her true emotions hidden behind her smile. Oh, by the way, about the new house we're planning to build, how are the plans going? Huh? My mother-in-law suddenly changed the subject. I couldn't help but express my surprise at how out of place the conversation was.
Yeah, we're still stuck on the money. It wouldn't be a problem if we could secure a loan smoothly.
My husband, who seems oblivious to the atmosphere, chimed in with that topic. I felt like shouting involuntarily. This isn't the place to discuss this. It's as if my sister's illness doesn't matter at all. But this is a hospital room. I held myself back. Afterward, together with relatives, we listened to the doctor's explanation and decided on the surgery date. It was mentioned that she might need to remove most of her stomach. Even though it wasn't me undergoing the surgery, I was seized by chills and my body trembled. You're exaggerating, big sis. While my sister tried to remain calm, fate wasn't going to let things progress so easily. My sister's condition worsened day by day. Her face darkened, and she could hardly swallow any food. And then she started spending more and more time lying in bed. I visited her every day to encourage her. In a small, pained voice, she repeated to herself, it's okay, many times as if trying to reassure herself. And then the day of the surgery arrived. We waited outside the operating room for a long time as the long hand of the clock made 6 complete rotations. I had been praying to God continuously, hoping that everything would end safely. And when the surgery finished, my sister was brought out by the nurses. When I asked about the surgery, the attending physician,
The surgery has generally concluded without any major issues. However, there's a possibility of metastasis in other organs, so we need to carefully monitor the situation.
Is that so? I felt my already anxious and tight chest expanding even further. And then even worse news came. The results of the examination showed metastasis to organs other than the stomach. At this point, I was told that recovery would be difficult, and I felt overwhelmed by a sensation akin to being plunged into the depths of despair, and dizziness persisted. My sister woke up from anesthesia, but she was connected to various tubes and receiving many medications through IV drips. She was in critical condition. Hillary. While holding my dear sister's hand, I desperately prayed to God for her recovery. This child hasn't done anything wrong. She's just been bravely living her life to the fullest every day. Please don't take her like that. That's what I wished for. When I stepped outside the hospital, I saw my husband and mother-in-law engrossed in conversation. I decided to hide in the shadows and eavesdrop on them. I could hear their voices.
We need to sort out the money for the house soon.
My husband rubbed his chin, lost in thought. Hey, Hillary won't be with us much longer, don't you think? In response, my mother-in-law said something outrageous. I couldn't believe my ears, so I quickly took out my phone from my pocket and switched it to recording mode.
It will depend on the future treatment. Oh yeah, the other day I got a call from the insurance company, and it seems she's insured for $300,000 in case of death.
That's really amazing. If that comes through, then who needs a mortgage, right? The heartless exchange between them made me feel disappointed and filled with an urge to lash out.
Well, if everything goes as planned, we might be able to build a 2-family house with the insurance money.
She doesn't even work much and ends up with cancer. Well, whatever. Such a lovely souvenir from someone useless, huh? How dreadful. I will definitely get even with them. I was glaring at the two with a cold, icy stare that went beyond anger. The next day, I called all the relatives to the hospital saying, there's something we need to discuss together.
What's this about?
When everyone gathered, my mother asked, it's about Hillary's insurance money. I started the conversation calmly.
Hey, Hillary is still fighting, and you're talking about insurance money.
My father reproached, but I stopped him and continued speaking. I understand. I don't want to have this kind of conversation at a time like this, but there's something important I want you to hear. I started using the smartphone I had with me. I exposed the secret conversation between my husband and mother-in-law from that time. The two of them froze on the spot, their faces turning pale. The two of you were talking about this and I recorded it.
Hey, what's this conversation?
Unbelievable. Building a house with Hillary's life insurance? My uncle and aunt widened their eyes.
Hey, what's the meaning of this?
My father's face turns red as he confronts my husband.
That's not what it is. We didn't mean it like that.
What? What's your intention here? You were grinning together, anticipating the worst-case scenario for my sister, weren't you? I calmly interrogate my husband. Well, recording us in secret like that? What a dirty trick. My mother-in-law remains unrepentant, refusing to back down. Dirty? I think your moral depravity far outweighs anything I could do. I pressed my nose against her face, confronting her directly. You're okay saying you'd build a house in exchange for my sister's precious life? I wouldn't want to be around such a wicked person, even if God commanded it. Go camp out somewhere else. Well, I just... She fell silent, unable to find the words.
What's going on?
At that moment, my father-in-law, who arrived late at the hospital, sensed something unusual and approached us. When I told him the details of what happened, he was furious at the cruel conversation between his son and his wife. He seized them both by their collars and brought them closer.
What do you think human life is? Even with relatives fighting desperately against illness, how could you say such awful things? I don't recognize you as family. I disown you.
My father-in-law's yelling echoed throughout the hospital and the windows shook. At that moment, a doctor came running out of the ICU room where my sister was receiving intensive care.
Families, could we please gather here?
With eyes gleaming behind glasses, the doctor began to share unbelievable news. It turns out that my sister's cancer cells are disappearing rapidly and her symptoms are dramatically improving. It appears that the experimental new treatment being developed perfectly suited her condition. After a while, my sister regained consciousness. Hillary, are you okay? Morgan, I think I'm okay now. My body doesn't hurt much anymore. With a firm tone, my sister showed a smile. Seeing Hillary like that, I couldn't hold back my overflowing tears.
It's a wonderful result. I didn't expect it to be this effective. You could even call it a miracle.
The attending physician was genuinely amazed by the effectiveness of the new medication and my sister's resilience. I honestly did not expect her to recover so well either. I kept wondering how much longer she would last and what would happen if the worst-case scenario occurred. I kept thinking in a more and more negative direction.
Hillary, I'm so glad. I couldn't sleep at night wondering what would happen for a while. You really worked hard. Once you're discharged, let's all celebrate together.
Both my mother and relatives were joyfully discussing it, truly happy about her recovery. And 6 months later, Hillary was safely discharged. I'm really relieved. I haven't felt alive every day for the past year. I felt truly saved by my sister's perseverance. I let out a sigh of relief from the bottom of my heart. Seeing that, Hillary smiled softly as if astonished. You worry about others like it's your own problem, Morgan. I was worried about you worrying about me, you know. You were calling my name at my bedside all the time, you know. Well, what else could I do? My little sister, just barely past 20, ended up facing the brink of death. Well, that's the good thing about you, Morgan. It made me feel that you were nearby. It was reassuring. Thank you so much. I couldn't help but shed tears at Hillary's heartfelt words, and I hugged her tightly to hide them. But there was still something I had to do. I need to talk to you for a moment. One day, sometime after my sister's discharge, I called my husband into the living room.
What's up?
I spread the documents out on the table with a thud.
What? What is this?
A sheet of paper with prominent green lines. It's a divorce paper, obviously. I don't want to be with a jerk like you. Hurry up and sign it here, I said firmly.
Wait. Sure, we talked about the insurance money, but I didn't wish for the worst for Hillary. I've been disowned by my father, and I have nowhere else to go. If we get divorced now, where will I go?
My husband will have no choice but to beg me. I don't know anything about that. You knew how much I cared about my sister, didn't you? Despite that, it's not something a decent person would consider. Using her life insurance money to fund a house.
That's why I said I was sorry. I swear I'll never think or speak of it again.
Emotional manipulation won't work on me. Whether it's between spouses or siblings, there are unforgivable actions. You've crossed that line that you shouldn't have crossed. I never want to see your face again. I got my husband's signature almost forcibly. And then my mother-in-law was banned from entering the house by her husband, and all the relatives were told to cut ties with her because of her actions. She's lost all her relatives, and we have no idea where she is or what she is doing. I subsequently divorced and received a hefty alimony payment from my ex-husband. The new drug administered to Hillary had not yet been approved by the government, and medical expenses were quite high, but the alimony covered the costs for now. If it gets approved, I'll get a retroactive refund. And then there's another happy event. It's about Hillary's marriage. Her partner is the owner of a cafe they often visit, and they bonded over Hillary's dream of running a cafe, or so I've heard. I was happy for Hillary's happiness, as if it were my own. We overcame that dreadful illness, and while it might seem ordinary, we achieved the greatest happiness. I ended up divorced, but I really don't mind at all. I need to develop a better eye for men, I reminded myself. Later on, my sister had a baby girl. I decided to take care of the child in place of my busy sister. The child looks a lot like my sister, and somewhat like me. I intend to cherish her like my own daughter. Honestly, if this peaceful life continues, I thought I wouldn't mind being single forever. We were both thrown by unexpected events, including sudden illnesses. But we've overcome those challenges and are living happily together. Every day, as I savor that happiness, I believe my sister and I can overcome any obstacle together. Thank goodness Hillary recovered from that terrible illness. And to think that Morgan's husband and mother-in-law was planning to use Hillary's insurance to fund their house? How selfish and crazy can they be? I'm glad that Morgan was firm and ultimately divorced her husband. Morgan's ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law got what they deserved. Thank you for watching until the end. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Please like the video and subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.
After being scorned by my husband and his female childhood friend, I divorced. Months later, his new wife showed up at my door.
Sorry for stealing your wonderful husband, Erica said with a mock apology that only irritated me. She is his childhood friend turned lover. Something he insisted wouldn't happen, yet here we are. Instead of an apology from my husband Victor, he had the audacity to say,
I don't want to spend the rest of my life with a woman like you.
Oh, is that so? I shot back. Well, I certainly don't want to spend mine with you either. I'll gift wrap this guy with a ribbon for you, I said to Erica in my heart as I glared at her. My name's Rachel, a 40-year-old part-time homemaker. It's just Victor, my 42-year-old husband, our daughter Lisa in 6th grade, and me. We're just your average family. Victor and I aren't particularly close, but it's It's not bad enough to say we're unhappy. We're more like roommates than a married couple, a dynamic that's persisted for years. However, things started to get tense when Victor entered his 40s. Every marriage hits a rough patch, and it seems ours is now. Victor's middle-aged and stressed. I try to see the small spats as nothing major, but I could do without his unreasonable demands.
Hey, where did that go?
He'd blurt out randomly. What are you talking about? I'd ask.
You know, that. How do you not know after all these years?
He'd snap back, a frequent occurrence. Apparently I'm supposed to know what that is. His stress-induced irritability keeps coming.
What's this? The seasoning is too strong,
He'd complain. You're the one who wanted it stronger. I'd remind him.
I'm in the mood for something milder today,
He'd retort, and so on.
I don't like the color of these socks.
But you told me to buy this color last time.
I've moved on to different colors. Why is it sunny today? Why can't I sleep? Why is your face funny?
Enough already. How am I supposed to control the weather? Or his sleep? Or my funny face? His constant griping makes me irritable too. Bad for our daughter, so I try to stay calm. Easier said than done. I breathe a sigh of relief when he's away on business trips. Recently, his mood improved. Or so I thought, until his childhood friend became a constant presence. And this childhood friend isn't a man. It's Erica. She's a beauty, making my age show next to her. With her flawless skin, shiny hair, and perfect makeup, she's the embodiment of a bewitching beauty. Suddenly, she's always contacting Victor. They'd sometimes meet up alone outside, but guess what? Erica started showing up at our house too. Apparently, she'd recently gotten divorced and moved back to her parents' place, which, by no coincidence, is near Victor's family home, and thus, conveniently close to us. Without kids or a job, she often complained of boredom, which apparently made reaching out to my husband her new pastime. Imagine looking forward to a lazy weekend morning only to be jolted awake by the doorbell ringing non-stop. And who's at the door? Erica. Got bored and decided to drop by. My folks are still asleep. Got anything for breakfast? She brazenly asked. I was still processing this when Victor got up and, instead of being reasonable, he said,
Erica's just heartbroken from her divorce. We should be nice to her.
And let her in. And then somehow I ended up being roped into making breakfast. Really? Because her parents are asleep, she comes here for breakfast? Did she never do any housework while married? I usually just had toast for breakfast, and dinner was whatever I could grab from the supermarket or a takeout, Erica said nonchalantly as if that excused everything. But this morning she said, French toast and waffles for breakfast, Rachel. Don't slack. As she and my husband chatted cozily on the couch, with her occasionally clinging to him, I wondered, what's going on here? Lisa, waking up to this scene, echoed my thoughts. Good morning. What's going on here? Despite our daughter's blunt observation, they continued their frolic. Might as well serve burned French toast. Who's that woman, Dad? Lisa asked. She's in 6th grade now. Of course she's curious. To her question, he said,
A childhood friend?
Seems too clingy for just a friend right in front of Mom, too,
she retorted.
Well, talking to a beauty is more enjoyable,
he confessed, leaving Lisa to scornfully retreat, calling him a creep. He was unfazed. Far from just returning from the bathroom, Erica suggested,
Hey, why don't we go shopping now?
And off they went. That's basically a date, right? They just left so casually, I was speechless. They didn't come back until late at night. Seriously, Erica, don't you have your own home to go back to? The two of them walked in, and I was shocked to see her arm entwined with my husband's. In Victor's left hand was a shopping bag, obviously from some fancy brand, judging by the logo. What's with the arm linking? I blurted out, to which Erica responded,
Oh, we were just flirting a little. Just kidding.
No, just kidding doesn't cut it. Victor? What is this, cheating? I asked, irritated by her tone. Victor, with a nonchalant look, retorted,
We're just childhood friends who went shopping. Stop nagging.
Linking arms with a childhood friend?
What? Are you jealous? Look in the mirror before you start accusing me of anything.
He snapped back. Excuse me?
I don't want to link arms with an old lady like you.
And she's fine?
If it bothers you that much, why don't you try being as pretty as she is?
This guy. And there she was smirking all over.
Really, Rachel, you do look older. So gross. This is the end for a woman. I need to make sure I don't end up like you.
She sneered. What the heck? Her condescension only fueled my anger, but she remained smug.
Listen, old lady,
she starts.
If you don't want your husband to dump you, you better start working on yourself. Everyone prefers a younger, prettier wife over an old lady.
With that, she grabbed the brand name bag my husband had been carrying and left. Seriously, what's her deal? I fumed. But when I confronted Victor, he had the audacity to say,
You're getting mad over the truth?
I was livid. Next time she shows up, I'll definitely give her a piece of my mind. But then her visits to our house abruptly stopped. You'd think I'd be relieved, right? Turns out, it's not that simple. They just kept meeting up outside, not even bothering to hide it.
I'm going out to dinner with Erica, so don't wait up for dinner. I'm going to the movies with Erica on my next day off. Borrowing a car to go for a drive with Erica. Erica wanted a necklace, so I bought her one.
Erica. It's like a curse. I haven't been on a date with my husband in years. No dinners out, no drives, nothing. I was seething with anger and disbelief every day. But the worst was yet to come.
I'll be on a business trip from tomorrow and Erica's coming with me.
What? Seriously, what? Going on your romantic vacation with your mistress now?
Oh, come on. It's just a trip with a business purpose. Cheating with a childhood friend? Huh, makes no sense.
He claimed. The only thing that makes no sense is this situation. So it's fine to go on a trip with a friend of the opposite sex? Is that how it is now?
That's ridiculous, Mom. Try to stay calm.
My daughter's words snapped me out of my panic. You're right. This is absolutely not okay. I tearfully agreed with my daughter. I resolved to have a serious talk with Victor when he returned. And when he did come back, it wasn't with souvenirs but Erica, literally hand in hand. Holding hands now? I couldn't even feign surprise anymore. I tried to stay calm, but then in front of me, Erica kissed him. A kiss? What the hell are you doing? I finally yelled.
Just kissing my boyfriend,
she said as if it was the most natural thing. Boyfriend? I looked at Victor for answers and he simply said,
Well, that's what it is.
My disbelief turned into shock as he explained.
We became a couple during the trip.
No way. That's a lie. They must have been involved way before that trip.
Sorry for stealing your wonderful husband,
Erica said with a sarcastic tone that just irked me further. What do you think you're doing? I asked Victor, now surprisingly calm. Shrugging, he declared.
I'm a catch. I deserve someone better than you. I don't want to spend the rest of my life with a woman like you.
So that's how it is. No apologies, no love, just cold dismissal. Realizing I no longer existed in his world, I felt a strange sense of clarity. Fine. but I expect a fair settlement for alimony and child support. I stated firmly.
Huh, if that's all it takes to be rid of you, I'll pay whatever you want.
He scoffed. And just like that, our marriage was over. It was surprisingly straightforward. After that, things got busy. First up, finding a new place to live. I decided to rent an apartment nearby until my daughter graduated. Right after graduation, we were set to move back to my hometown. I sought out a lawyer to handle the divorce proceedings and consult on everything needed. Negotiations with Victor went smoothly, perhaps because he wanted the divorce over with quickly. Being in a decent management position, the alimony and child support payments weren't an issue for him. I got lucky there. He agreed to all my terms without fuss. The alimony and child support were paid in a lump sum, just as I had hoped. The division of our joint property went off without a hitch. He kept the house, and I took the savings. Honestly, the house was worth more, but I let it go. The alimony was more than I had expected after all. And so my daughter and I left the house. What really got under my skin was Erica showing up just as our stuff was being loaded into the moving truck. A moving truck of our own in tow.
Still here? Still hung up on Victor, I see,
she said, making assumptions.
Hurry up and leave, old lady. I'm going to live here and be all lovey-dovey with your ex-husband,
she had the nerve to say. Yeah, do whatever you want, I replied, indifferent. My feelings for him were long gone. I just waved and walked away without a word.
What was that all about? Dad's got terrible taste in women. Mom, I'm glad you divorced him,
my daughter said. Her words were a comfort, and so began our life together, just the two of us. I soon realized something. There was an indescribable sense of liberation. No more nagging husband. No more husband who prioritized a childhood friend over his own family. What a relief. Seriously, getting divorced was the best decision. I couldn't help but murmur. A few months later, my daughter graduated from elementary school. And on the day we were finally moving back to my hometown, Erica, now my ex-husband's new wife, showed up at our apartment. What's this all about? I asked, surprised. Through tears, she blurted out, "Help me." Dragging her inside, she exploded.
What's his deal?
Who? I asked.
Your husband,
she cried. Oh, my ex-husband. What about him? I prodded. She ranted about how insufferable he'd become, a far cry from before.
What's with him? He was never like that, but ever since we started living together, he's gone completely mad,
she started.
If he wants waffles and muffins for breakfast that much, he should make them himself. Is instant coffee not good enough? People can live without cleaning, right? Why can't I buy what I like?
She complained, clearly fed up with my ex antics.
And he's just so picky,
she added.
He says he wants light meals, so I buy light meals. Then he wants something rich. It's ridiculous. He said he wanted a blue tie, so I got him an expensive one from a famous brand. But then he tells me he wanted a cheaper purple one. What the hell?
I get déjà vu hearing this. It's also familiar.
He complains about the weather, how the wind's not blowing from the right direction, making him grumpy. Really?
She continued. Yup, I remembered those days.
And then, looking at my face, he says my makeup is interesting. What's that supposed to mean?
She raged, to which I inadvertently replied. Interesting? More like heavy. Careful or you'll get wrinkles from all that frowning. She clutched her face, perhaps recognizing herself in my words.
And another thing,
she trailed off, shaking with anger.
Just how much does he love women?
She exclaimed. Oh, you didn't know? I asked.
Wait, you knew?
Well, yes, I'm his ex-wife. Yes, my husband loved women, but it was mostly harmless flirtation. At least, it used to be.
It's not just flirting. He's been lavishing gifts on women he dates.
Oh, really? That's new to me. But it makes sense. He probably gained confidence after being with you, I reasoned. In other words, he got cocky. I knew him well. He must have thought he was more appealing than he really was after winning Erica over. What? What do you mean? She shrieked at my words. I wish she'd keep it down. The walls here are paper thin. He's been splurging on women just to get their attention, and now he's broke. Well, that's quite the situation. When I asked for living expenses, he told me to get a job too, she complained. Maybe you should, I suggested. No way. That would be just like my first marriage, she protested. So she didn't do housework or work during her first marriage either, living off her ex-husband's money until they divorced. She probably thought she could have an easy life with Victor's income. Too bad for you. If it's that bad, why not just divorce him? You've been through it once already. Doing it again won't make much difference. Surprisingly, she replied, I can't. If I divorce again, I'll have nowhere to go. Why's that? Well, the first divorce was one thing, but this time I'm married by stealing someone's husband. My parents were furious and kicked me out. Well, that's karma for you, I thought to myself, not wanting to get tangled in her mess. If I divorce again, I'll really have nowhere to go, she repeated. Why not stand on your own 2 feet and get a job? Absolutely not. I don't want to work, she declared. Well, that's your problem, I said, nearly at my wit's end. If we weren't in such a small apartment, I would have screamed. So I'm giving him back to you. If he returns to you, it won't be considered stealing anymore. Maybe then I can go back home. She figured. No thanks, he's non-returnable, I flatly refused. Then what am I supposed to do? That's not my concern, I replied, fed up. What is this, some kind of joke? How irresponsible. And what about you? Coming to the wife of the man you stole, crying for help. I don't get your logic, I said, done with the conversation. Holding the last of my belongings, a small bag, I looked back at her just as she realized the apartment was empty. What's this? You're moving? Yes, if I stayed near your place, you might keep showing up like this. I'm moving back to my hometown, in line with my daughter's middle school entrance. Huh? What am I supposed to do then? She was at a loss. I have some parting words for you, I said, smiling gently. Oh, what's that? She asked, swallowing nervously. Serves you right, I said calmly. At that, she collapsed to the floor. I left her speechless outside the door, turning my back on her and heading back to my hometown, where my parents and daughter had already moved. The start of a new chapter in my beloved hometown. Later, I heard through the grapevine that my ex had blown all his money on hostess bars, leading to bankruptcy. Desperate, he even dipped into company funds and got himself arrested. As for Erica, she ended up arrested and decided on divorce, but her parents refused to take her back, leaving her penniless and alone. That's the story a year after our divorce. This is exactly what you'd call a downfall in life. As for me, I'm living happily in an apartment near my family home, enjoying life with my daughter. Returning to work in my hometown has been challenging, but fulfilling. Without my ex-husband to nag me, and with my daughter now in middle school and as cute as ever, our days are full of joy.